Oh, hey, good looking.
Sierra 1 reporting I have visible contact.
What's up, everybody? It has officially been 2 weeks since I announced a little giveaway that we were having for reaching 100 subscribers and you guys being totally awesome. So, you know what that means. It's time to pick the winners. We did actually have a lot more people responding to that than I expected, which is kind of strange. We had a whole of 7 unique individuals responding to the video, and all of them have been entered. The great news is that I actually have more games than enough for everybody to give away. The Steam codes will be sent to, again, the private inbox on YouTube, so make sure you check that. But I did just want to take this video and kind of enter the discussion myself. I know I've already responded to some of the comments, but I really just wanted to kind of converse with you guys, and I'll let each one of you guess as to which games everybody got a hold of. So to start off, we have Matthew H7, who responded, "Oh, it's so easy, Oblivion, without a doubt. The gameplay for me was awesome, and the adventures were epic. Absolutely loved the music in game because it set the mood and made me feel like an awesome adventurer. Will always love it." And to be honest, I think that's probably one of the truest comments I've ever read about Oblivion, especially the part about the music. I really enjoyed Oblivion's soundtrack, and I actually do have it on my iPhone, which I listen to walking to and from class. And it really, overall, I think, especially at the time, being a launch title for Xbox, the Xbox 360, it was awesome. And I mean, it's Oblivion is actually one of the more popular responses to this video. Commando Creeper also said that Oblivion, Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, he's clocked around 1,500 hours and literally memorized almost all of the quests. It's the good old Tamriel before any mass marketing and simplifying to expand its potential player base, which again is kind of something I wanted to touch on a little bit that I actually kind of agree with, because with the time spent in Skyrim, I didn't spend nearly as much time in Skyrim as I had anticipated I would. I admit I was on the hype train for Skyrim, which is a shame. And it was buggy. It was really empty, and there's only so many Draugr I could kill before it just got really boring. And especially the progression seemed a lot worse than in Oblivion. I mean, there was really nothing really stopping you from finding some kind of bug and then getting the best gear in the game before you were really supposed to be able to do that. And it kind of, the whole experience just felt very unpolished to me, which is kind of a shame. But on that regard, I totally agree with you two. Oblivion is very much one of my favorite games of all time, and that I'm really glad somebody actually brought that up. Moving on, we have Luca HDX Reviews, and he says, "My favorite game is probably Postal 2. Not because of the graphics or gameplay, it is mostly because of the amazing, blunt, and dark humor, and totally nonsensical violence. I've played a lot of games, but none of them could offer me nearly as much entertainment and fun as Postal 2. It is also one of the first games I've ever played." I haven't actually played much of Postal 2. I actually got it when it first came out on Steam, and I installed it and played it for maybe 15 minutes and then kind of didn't go back to it. And mind you, it's not because I didn't have fun. It's just, there were other things coming out at the time, and I already have a huge backlog of games, which is kind of disappointing to me because I bought every one of them with the full intention of playing them. But Postal 2 kind of fell in that category. I really don't know if it's an amazing game or not, because I just haven't had the chance to really get into it. But I'm actually hoping to do that at some point. It's definitely up on my list of games just because of how controversial the Postal series really is, even though the third one I heard is absolutely atrocious. Moving right along, we have Soulblade M, who says, "I can't really decide which game is my favorite. I can say which game combines my favorite things, though. Mass Effect 2. Great sci-fi lore, space opera with great characters, decent action gameplay, and dialogue choices that matter most of the time." And I think that's a very good point. Mass Effect is definitely one of my higher up series on the list of games that I really enjoy, just because the sci-fi epic really kind of is something that I love being a part of, and especially the Mass Effect series. I don't like how they handled Mass Effect 3's ending. I think that could have been a bit more fleshed out as a whole, but at the same time, you have to respect the artistic license that they took with that. But overall, I think Mass Effect 3 is the best game in the series, excluding the ending. Like, looking past the ending of the game, I think the mechanics of it, the presentation of it, and just in general, like what you were able to do with what was given to you, was a lot more fleshed out than the previous two games. Mass Effect 1, of course, suffering from the massive inventory problems, and just in general, the RPG elements kind of being a little bit tacked on, if you ask me. It didn't really feel like they did as much as they could have with it. Again, it's acceptable for the time that the game came out, not so much later on in our day and age. And Mass Effect 2, in my opinion, was a bit too focused on the shooter elements. It was a good game, don't get me wrong, and it really bothered me at the time. The romance options that you had in the game were all people that I really just wasn't interested in. Like, I had no connection whatsoever with Miranda, and I mean, Tally was kind of a side note, and God, what's her face, Jack. Oh God, I'm not that I have anything against Jack, but I can't take that much anger in one person. Like, I'm a very passive person, and just so much like pent up hatred just seems a bit over the top to me. But very much so, Mass Effect 2 was a very good game, and it's definitely up there in the higher ranking of my favorite games. But I personally prefer Mass Effect 3, excluding the ending. Moving right along, we have Eric Lopez, who says, my favorite game is COD 4 because you can play mods for fun and play competitive. And that's, I think Call of Duty 4 was probably the pinnacle of the Call of Duty series for me. I played the hell out of Call of Duty 4. It was definitely one of my favorite games at the time. And I never really modded it, though. I didn't play much, like, real competitive stuff. I mostly played with my older brother and my father at the time. My father was never very good at it, ironically. But we had a lot of fun doing that, and COD 4 is definitely... it's one of those games that kind of served as a turning point, especially for the Call of Duty series, where they really kind of re-entered the marketplace as like this huge flagship franchise. And I definitely think that Call of Duty 4 is, worth noting in the overarching story of video game development. Moving right along, 707 Gaming says that his favorite game of all time, let's see. First, he congratulated me on 100 subscribers. I should probably note that. And thank you, 707 Gaming, for the congratulations. His favorite game of all time would have to be Star Wars Battlefront 2, simply because of the nostalgia. It took up most of my time as a kid, so when it went on sale on Steam a few months back, I had to buy it just to get that nostalgic feeling back. And nostalgia is such a huge motivator in playing video games. Like, I totally get where you're coming from. Like, the amount of nostalgia I have for some games is just, it's ridiculous. But I agree, Star Wars Battlefront 2 was awesome. I mean, that game, like, essentially defined, like, my middle school years as a child. We used to have, my buddies and I would get together over at my house or at their home, and we would play, like, a micro LAN party of Star Wars Battlefront 2 until, like, 7 in the morning on weekends, and it was absolutely awesome. Except for whoever got promoted to Darth Vader first, because they always destroyed me, and it pissed me off so much. But Battlefront 2 is still awesome. I totally agree with you on that one. And then finally, we have Jihan83, which I think I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I'm not quite sure. Who also congratulates me on reaching the 100 subscriber mark. Thank you, Jihan. I appreciate it. And his favorite game, he says, I think my favorite game would be something like Shadow of the Colossus. It seemed like a rare experience with the story and its presentation, but also because it seemed fairly rare with being a game focused solely on a boss rush. Though I think it's grown in my mind further because it inspired a lot of set-piece bosses in other games, and none of these have really compared well. That's a very interesting thing. I only played Shadow of the Colossus recently. rather, I was a bit younger than I am now. It was right towards the end of high school. I think it was my junior year I played it, when the I don't know, kind of the nostalgia of the game had kind of propagated to a point where, like, me at the time being primarily a first-person shooter player, I'd finally heard of it, so I went out and found a copy of it. And I don't know. It's one of those things where I found the game really interesting just because the bosses were fantastic. I loved being able to climb on things. That was awesome. But I think the use of weak spots on the bosses was probably one of the weaker points of the game. Which I understand that it's made to make you climb to a certain point and then you hit the boss and stuff. But at the same time, like climbing to the same point repeatedly or just kind of using that mechanic over and over again made the bosses seem very similar to each other, which was kind of unfortunate. I think they could have done a lot more with some of them. But that being said, Shadow of the Colossus has played a primary role in shaping a lot of set-piece bosses, like you said, in other games. And one of the things I think Shadow of the Colossus did really, really well was that these bosses seemed huge. Like, the player character was so small in comparison that it really gave you that feeling of insignificance, and it really propelled kind of that desperate feeling that the entire game had. He's desperately trying to rescue this woman by going to the kind of god that's trapped in there, and you're trying to restore his power. But just that whole desperate feeling of fighting something that's so much larger than you. And I don't really think games have really captured that so well since then, just because I think with the whole sword thing and the having to climb them and use a melee weapon really instills that kind of, dramatic, very intense gameplay mechanic. Whereas when you give yourself a bazooka and like, the BFG of Quake or whatever, and you have all these weapons at your disposal, fighting something that big really isn't so much an intense thing as you're kind of wondering how many rockets you're going to have to waste until it gibbs into a giant fountain of blood and gore. But that being said, that is all the comments from the wonderful people that are that entered themselves into the game giveaway. Again, I'm going to leave the randomized game giveaway, the games to each specific person, as a mystery. So do me a favor, guys, and check your inboxes. I have sent out the codes to each of you, and I really hope that you enjoy the games that you guys got. And remember, they are Steam keys, so go on Steam and redeem those, and they're yours to play as you please. But beyond that, I guess stay tuned. Later this week, I'm planning on putting out a review, hopefully, if everything goes according to plan. There's actually quite a bit going on right now. But review later in the week, and stay tuned for that. And seriously, guys, you are all awesome. I'm really glad we got to celebrate hitting the 100 subscriber landmark. It's a huge deal, especially as a smaller YouTube channel. And it's just really exciting. It really is. Like, I don't know how else to put it. I don't know how to convey how excited I am about that. But until next time, guys, stay awesome, and cheers.
Talk. Entry team to talk. Suspect in custody, ready for pickup. Entry team to talk. Civilian hit. In need of medical attention.